Hello, everyone, and welcome to this Italia Pass Ready for Rome webinar. My name is Shelley Ruel, and I'm the community manager at Italia Pass. And I'm joined today by my colleague Sofia Bragaglia, who is an Italia Pass Italy experience specialist. And combined, we have many years of experience in Italy. I've been living in Italy for over 20 years, and Sophia is actually a native of Italy. So between the both of us, we have a lot of information to share, and we're happy to be with you here today to share information for your upcoming trip to Rome and Italy. So before we get into the information, I wanted to just take a moment to give you a brief, very brief overview of what is Italia Pass. A lot of people are a little bit curious because most of you have arrived at this webinar because you purchased an Italia Rail train ticket. So we're a family of brands. Italia Brands includes rail, tours, car rentals, hotels, and just recently also a dine program, a Roman dinner party as part of the Italia Pass. And so this has been since 1987, and we've worked with millions of travelers to Italy. And our CEO wanted to find a way to bring all of these things together to help his customers have the best trip to Italy ever. So he came up with Italia Pass, which is a membership benefits program. It costs $149. You get over $650 in value for your Italy trip. So as we go through our information today, you'll see a few slides about Italia Pass benefits just to make you aware if it's something that you might like to add to your trip. So the free part of Italia Pass is the community, which I manage. It's online. You can come over there anytime, ask any questions you want about travel to Italy. And then when we're talking about the pass itself, it's a membership, and you'll see some of the benefits as we go through the information today. So what are we going to cover today? Briefly, here's what we're going to go over. We'll start with as you arrive. Most of you are going to arrive at FCO, which is Fiumicino Airport, also known as Leonardo da Vinci. So we're going to explain to you how you get from there to the city, because it's about a half an hour outside the city. And then we'll give you a little bit of information about our lounge, if that's something you're interested at Rome's Termini train station. I'll talk to you about how to get around on public transport here in Rome, as well as some common cultural things here with our restaurants that you might not know about, how to avoid some of the most common tourist traps. And then Sophia will tell you about how you can get complimentary access to some of the most famous monuments and museums here in Rome and also Florence, and also how you can get $100 off of an Italia Tours experience. I'll wrap it up with a couple of my favorite local tips, and then we'll go into a live Q&A. It'll be in a chat format. So what you'll do is when we get to that, you can go into the chat box in your tools, and there should be a Q&A icon. At any time throughout the presentation today, if a question comes up, just type it in. It will go into the queue, and then Sophia and I will answer those questions live at the end. We'll spend 15 minutes. If we don't get to them all, I'll answer them offline and make sure that you get the answer. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to Sophia to talk to you about how to get into the city from the airport.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Shelley, and thank you again to everyone for joining us today. So yeah, let's get started. Let's say you've landed at FCO Airport, which, as Shelley mentioned, is one of the main destinations for international arrivals. So from here, you'll have a few options to get to the center of Rome. As you see on the slide, they're all indicated in the terminal. So the first option is to reach Roma Termini. That is the main train station in Rome, and you can do so by train. There are two types of trains that you can take. The first one is called Leonardo Express. It's a direct train to Termini. It costs $16 on Italia Rail, and I would say it's one of our most popular, if not the most popular way of getting to the center of the city. However, by train, there's also another option, which is more of a local train. We call it, it's a regional train, essentially, that will get you to smaller stations in Rome, specifically Trastevere and Ostiense. It's a bit cheaper. It's $10 on Italia Rail. And to be fair, they're all considered regional trains. The opposite would be a high-speed train. But essentially, which one you'll pick will be determined by where in the city you're staying. So, as I said, Rome Termini is the main one, but if you're trying to reach a more specific area, the other two are also an option. We generally get a lot of questions on whether you should book your tickets in advance ahead of your arrival. And I would recommend booking them in advance, especially if you're traveling during high season, which is just about now. It should end around early October, I would say. During this time, the queues can get very long, the servers can get a bit overwhelmed. So I would just make sure that you secure a space at the best departure time for you before you actually arrive. Um, just, keep in mind that Leonardo Express tickets are time specific. So there's a bit of math to be done for the timing. Speaking of that, I would recommend booking a time that's at least 1.5 hours, if not 2 hours after your scheduled landing time, and definitely no train tickets out of Rome Termini. So, for example, if you're trying to get to another city, Naples, Florence, you name it, no tickets out of that station before within 3 hours of your arrival, essentially. This is just in case of delays, luggage issues, any unforeseen events. Airports can be a bit tricky to deal with, so that's just my recommendation. You also want to arrive a bit early at the station, especially Rome Termini. It's one of the biggest train stations in Italy. It's very easy to navigate, very clear, but it is a big place. So yeah, all in all, you'll want to have some extra time to navigate it. So yeah, that's it for trains. There are also taxis that you can take right outside the terminal. They have a fixed rate of 55 euros. Or other options include taking a shuttle bus or booking a private transfer with us, which can take you straight to your accommodation in Rome or again to the train station. Regardless of where you have to be, we can take you there. So yeah, you can book that on italiatours.com. It will be under the Rome section for transfers. Or if you would like to speak to us before you do that, you can reach out to an Italy experience specialist like myself, and we'll be happy to set it up for you. Next up, a question that comes up a lot is if you should rent a car during your trip. Now, as I always say, there's no universal answer to this one, but I will try to give you some pointers so that you can make an informed decision. I would say the main way to decide is if you know that you're going to be exploring some more remote areas of Italy, let's say, for example, the Amalfi Coast or the Tuscan countryside, those are very popular destinations, renting a car can be a great option. However, if you're only going to be visiting major cities, let's say Florence, Venice, Rome, Milan, or any big city, I would not recommend the car. I essentially the best way to navigate between these locations is by train. There's high-speed trains that connect all of these cities. And once you're actually inside the city, there's a lot of very strict car traffic rules. Finding parking can be a bit of a nightmare. You need some permits to enter certain areas. So overall, even locals tend to struggle with these rules. So I would not recommend it to somebody who's just visiting as a tourist. And again, there's so much public transport that you can easily get by just on that. Regardless, if you do decide to rent a car, you can do so on our platform, Italia Drive. And as a member, you would benefit from a $10 discount, which you can redeem after booking by contacting us. Next up, another perk of being a member is, of course, the access to our Italia Pass Lounge, which is located inside Roma Termini, the station that I mentioned before. Uh, this is just, I would say, a great place to hang out if you have some free time before boarding a train or if you're waiting for your hotel check-in time. You can come and visit us. You can relax. We have free Wi-Fi, espresso, refreshments. We also offer free luggage storage for both carry-ons or larger bags, which you can retrieve and, of course, drop off during any time during opening hours. We also have some lovely lounge hosts that can answer any questions that you might have about your time in Rome or your train tickets. So I would definitely recommend it. All you need to do is book your complimentary visit beforehand, just so we know that you will be visiting at a certain time on a certain day, so that we can be ready to welcome you. And now I'll hand it over to Shelley for some information on public transport within the city.
Okay, thank you. So here we are with public transport. You can see the Colosseum, the bus driving right in front of that. It's called ATAC, that's the company name. There's three main ways you can get around with public transport. The most prevalent way are the above ground buses. We also have a metro, which is a subway line, so an underground. It's called the metro. It's short for metropolitana. So if you hear somebody saying metro, that means the subway. There's only two lines, A line and B line. Super easy, and they only cross at one point. And once again, Termini train station. So Rome's main train station is also the only point where the subway lines cross, meaning that's the only point where you can change from A line to B line. So very easy to navigate. There's also a few trams. You probably won't use those except maybe tram number 8, which goes in Piazza Venezia. So those are the three types of transport that we have in Rome. Tickets are relatively inexpensive compared to other large European cities. They cost €1.50. They work on a time basis. So that means you don't need to worry about different zones of the city, paying more to go from zone 1 to zone 2. We don't have any of that. One ticket, 100 minutes, unlimited rides. You just have to validate it. If you have a paper ticket, which I'll talk about in a minute, if you have a paper ticket, you're going to want to validate that in a machine, which you will easily see on the buses. Or if you're going to the subway, you'll be forced to insert the ticket at the turnstile, and it will spit it back out with the timestamp. Once you board your first method of public transport, whether it be bus, metro, tram, that's when your 100 minutes starts. And it's unlimited rides with one exception. You only get one subway ride within one ticket. So let's say, and it's as long as you need to complete your journey on the subway, but you can't reboard the subway after on that same ticket. So once you go into the metro, you have your journey. Once you leave the metro station, that ticket is still good for as many minutes as you still have left within that 100-minute period. However, it's not good for another metro ride. You would have to buy another ticket. So that's just one exception. Now, the easy way that we have now in Rome to ride, which you'll see in a lot of large cities, is tap and go. So if you have a contactless payment card, credit debit card with a chip where it's contactless, all you have to do is use your card, tap in the machine, and that counts as your ticket. Very easy. Now, at the metro, you're going to be forced to tap or to show or to insert your ticket because there's turnstiles. Whereas on the buses, it's almost like an honor system. The drivers do not interact with the passengers, meaning you don't have to buy a ticket from the driver. You don't have to pass by the driver to get on the bus. You don't have to show your ticket to the driver. That means that if you get on the bus and you don't have a ticket, you can just pay with your contactless payment. There's little boxes on most of the buses, pretty much all of them, I think, nowadays, but I will explain how you can get a paper ticket just in case. Now, the only thing with the contactless payment is that you can only use one payment method. So let's say your card, or if you have like your smartphone, you have Apple Pay, you can only use one payment method per rider. So for example, like in New York, I know that you can use the same card for multiple riders. Here, each card counts as the ticket for that rider. So on the metro, you're not going to run into inspectors because you're forced to pay when you go in. But on the bus, if an inspector comes on, you'll show your payment method. You'll just show your credit card or your debit card, and they'll look it up in their device and see that you paid. So it's quite easy, but just keep in mind that if you have multiple riders, they each need their own payment card or method. Now, as far as paper tickets go, if you do want to get a paper ticket just in case, if you don't have contactless payment method, you're going to find machines at the metro stations, but you're not going to find machines at the bus stops. If you want to ride on the buses and you want to have a paper ticket, stop by a tabacceria, which is a tobacconist. They're easy to identify because they have a sign that has a T over the door, or any of the newsstands throughout the city, which there's a lot. And tickets, if you want to practice your Italian, they're called biglietto. So you can ask for a biglietto. Probably best to get 2 per person because that way you've got a round trip if you plan to spend more than 100 minutes on that first ticket and coming back if there's going to be a lapse of time. Last but not least, I want to point out one bus route that's particularly helpful for tourists and also something to be aware of. So bus 64 is a great bus route because it goes all the way from that transport hub, Termini train station, across the historic center, all the way over to the Vatican. So it's really easy to get to pretty much most of the main sites that you want to see. At the same time, because it's kind of a tourist magnet type of bus route, it can also be a hub for pickpockets. Now, I don't want to worry you. Don't get, too concerned about pickpocketing. I know on social media sometimes people say, "Oh, everyone's going to get pickpocketed." I've lived here for over 20 years. I've never been pickpocketed, and I'm nothing special. It's just that I am very aware of my belongings when I ride the public transport. So if you have a purse, wear it across, like a cross bag, cross-body bag, wallet, put the wallet in your front pocket instead of your back pocket, and just be aware of your surroundings, as you would in any large major metropolitan city. Rome is a very safe city. Petty crime can be an issue, but generally speaking, it's a safe place to be as long as you're aware of your surroundings. Next, let's talk about restaurants. You're going to love all the Roman food that you're going to eat here in Rome. Something that might be a little different that you're not used to are the dining times. We eat a little bit later than, say, North America, or at least the United States and Canada, generally speaking. We tend to eat lunch around 1 or 1:30 p.m. starting, and dinner anywhere from 8 to 8:30 p.m. The reason I mention this is because if you're going to go to a local restaurant, they may not serve meals before those times. So there's plenty of other restaurants that are open all day, but the most authentic places are going to follow these times, the local culture times. The reason I put check on this list is because something that's a little different is that culturally, the wait staff does not automatically bring your check. That might happen in the United States where when they bring your dishes, they might bring your check and say, "I'll take this when you're ready," or there might be even a device on the table you can pay whenever you want. We don't have that here. And the reason that they don't bring the check automatically is out of respect. Culturally, when Romans go out to dinner with their friends and family, it's really quality time, and the wait staff wants to make sure they respect the fact that you're not feeling rushed, like you have to leave. So they wait for you to give the cue as to when you're ready to leave. So if you're thinking, "Gosh, the service here is so slow, how come they haven't brought my check?" It's actually because they're trying to be courteous of your fact that you have that table. So unless they tell you when you come in that they're turning that table, which is rather rare, just know that you have to ask for the check when you're ready to go, and they'll happily bring it right away. Check is called il conto, if you would like to say il conto per favore. That would be an easy way to practice your Italian. One thing that we do get lots of questions about is tipping. So generally speaking, wait staff works on a regular salary. Tipping is not in the local culture at restaurants. If you thought you had an exceptionally good meal, you want to be courteous, you could leave maybe €1 per person. But generally speaking, it's just not, certainly you would just never leave 20%, that kind of a thing. It's just not in the culture. So don't feel strange if you don't leave a tip, or if you just leave like maybe €1 per person, that's perfectly fine. And it's totally normal, and a large tip would be rather unexpected. I say that because I don't want you to run into a place where maybe they see that you're a tourist and they try to make you believe that that's in the culture, because I've also seen that happen. It's not. Don't let them, don't let somebody try to make you think that's the case. It's not. Same goes with taxis. You don't need to worry about tipping in a taxi necessarily. You could round up if you're paying in cash. We also have Uber here, and you can pay with cards, so it's very easy. Let's move over to gelato. Gelato is delicious. I hope you're going to enjoy all of our delicious gelato here. However, watch out for the tourist trap gelatos. If you see gelato like those ones in those tubs where it's like heaping over the top, it's because they've whipped a lot of air into it to make it very showy and kind of spectacular looking, but it's not really authentic. The most authentic gelato usually won't come over the top of the rim of the bins, and sometimes you might not even see the gelato. Sometimes it might be under a top, like an aluminum cover, and that's really authentic and definitely thumbs up. If you see really bright colors, beware, that's probably artificial colors, and any gelato that's authentic is not going to use artificial colors. They're going to use natural fruit, which is going to have a more natural looking color. Last but not least about restaurants, touristy trap red flags that you'll know right away. If you see pictures on your menu, well, obviously that's designed for tourists, because Romans, they don't need pictures. They know exactly what they're going to be eating when they're ordering their dishes. Another tip off is if you're walking by a restaurant and there's somebody out there with flyers or someone trying to usher you inside, that's kind of a more touristy place. Now, are you going to get a horrible meal at a place like that? Probably not. Is it going to be very authentic and like what a local would eat? Probably not. So I will share with you in a resource list that I'm going to send out via email some local places that I like. And yeah, if you get out of the historic center and sometimes just around the corner, you'll find some local places as well. And that's a way to avoid the more touristy kind of restaurants. All right, so I think that wraps it up for this slide. I'm going to move over to Sophia again and to tell you about how to get into some of the most iconic sites.
Thank you, Shelley. So yeah, now you're in Rome. There's plenty of exciting sights to see. Let's get into it. First and foremost, the Colosseum. Of course, everybody loves the Colosseum as an arena, the tours that we have. And I have good news. As members, you do get one free tour of the Colosseum featuring exclusive access to the arena floor through the iconic Gladiators Gate. So that's, I would say, one of our main highlights this year. Of course, we also offer other tours within Rome. Some fan favorites, so to speak, are tours of the Vatican, as well as walking tours. Usually, our walking tours include the highlights of the city, so Piazza Navona, the Spanish Steps, the Trevi Fountain, of course. So if you're interested in a combination of all three, we actually have something called the Rome Tour Pass. It's a tour bundle that we usually recommend for tourists that will be staying at least 2 full days in Rome. And it includes everything that I've just mentioned. So it's usually a pretty good deal to just get it all booked at once. And again, if you at least have, we can try to fit it in one day, but it's best to have at least 2 full days, both for the tours and just to stay in Rome in general, I would say. So yeah, there's that. If you choose one of our tours, know that our members get $100 off of their first tour booking and 10% off of any subsequent tours. You can book any of these experiences on italiatours.com. And if you have any questions, you can always email us. We're always happy to help if you have any questions or if you need any help booking these experiences. I would recommend booking most of these tours, whether it's, the free tour of the Colosseum, the Vatican especially. Something else that we have is free complimentary access to Rome's Pantheon. And all of these sites are very, very in high demand. So my only recommendation would be as soon as you know when you will be in Rome and as soon as you have, a schedule for your trip, make sure to get these booked if you want to see them. Because again, there's very limited space and they sell out really, really fast. We also get frequent questions about the dress code for these places. I would say a general rule of thumb is that if you'd like to visit the Vatican or any of the churches, basilicas, duomos in Rome and in the rest of Italy, you will need to wear clothes that cover your shoulders and knees. This is especially true of the Vatican, but I would say it's a rule that goes for most churches, especially the big ones. But that's just for the churches. So if you go to the Colosseum, if you go to the Pantheon, you can wear whatever you feel comfortable with. I would personally recommend wearing something that you're comfortable walking in because you'll see they are very big places. There's a lot to see, a lot of walking to do. So that's my only recommendation. The final thing that's very important to keep in mind is these places, especially the Colosseum and the Vatican, do not allow large backpacks or large bags or even strollers into the for tours, or just once you're in, you cannot bring them in. So I would recommend bringing something a bit smaller. Usually a crossbody bag or, a smaller purse is fine. Just make sure it's nothing that takes up too much space, really. And next up, we also wanted to mention a special offer that we have for our members, which is free access to a special Vatican City edition of Italy Magazine. Italy Magazine is another one of our partner brands, and as the name suggests, it's a magazine dedicated to all things Italy. So yeah, we have this one special edition this year, which will give insider tips into visiting iconic landmarks within the Vatican during this very special year, which is almost coming to a close and is the Jubilee, as you may have heard. The issue is crafted for first-time visitors as well as anyone who's already been to the Vatican and needs a refresher. And to get access, it's very easy. You'll just have to fill out a brief survey for the information for which you'll find included in the community. So make sure to take advantage of that. And now back to Shelley for some local tips.
Okay, so we're about to wrap up the information part of the webinar and move into the Q&A. But before we do that, I wanted to share just a couple local tips with you. The first one is this fountain here on the upper right. That's called a nazzone. It means big nose, or plural nazzoni, and that's because of the shape of the spigot. It's just like you see, the water runs out of it continuously throughout the day. It doesn't need to be turned on or off. There are thousands of these throughout the downtown of Rome. And the water comes from deep underground springs. It comes out really cold. So it is the perfect way to be environmentally conscious, refill your reusable water bottle, and stay hydrated, especially because it's gotten really warm again here. It's been like Celsius like 30, 31 degrees the last couple of days. So you want to keep hydrated. So definitely use that to refill your water bottles. I'm going to share with you on my resources list an app that the local water utility has that you can even put on your smartphone, and it has a map where all of these are located. So that's cool because if you need to refill your bottle, it just locates where you are and it will show you where the nearest one is. Another super local tip with these fountains, if you don't have a water bottle to refill, but you're thirsty, you could cup your hands under it. That would be fine. But an even more clever and local way to do it is you can't see it in the photo, but on the top of that spigot, there's a little tiny hole. And the hole is there to make it a drinking fountain. So if you take your thumb and you plug the bottom, it will create a backflow of pressure, and then this flow of water will come out the top in like an arc, and you can bend down and drink like it's a regular drinking fountain. I always just tell people be a little careful about lots of people walking by because you want to spray somebody, because I have seen that happen and it travels far. So be careful of that. But otherwise, it's a fun local, kind of a local thing to do. And then this other picture here on the bottom, you can see an iconic tradition, a pre-dinner tradition called the aperitivo. You may have seen that drink or know of that drink. It's called the Aperol Spritz, very famous pre-dinner drink. But you know, an aperitivo doesn't even have, I mean, it's a very light amount of alcohol, obviously, because it's pre-dinner. So it's very light. But even there are plenty of aperitivo options. You don't have to get a drink with alcohol. You could even just get a Coca-Cola or a lemon soda. The point is that it's a fun little moment where you can get a snack before dinner. The place in this photo I really like because it has this really abundant amount of snacks. You can see they're like kind of like finger foods or like tapas. You don't necessarily get to choose. They bring this board out and it's just kind of different snacks, but it's a fun local tradition. This one in the picture costs, I think, 13 euros per person. But even if you were to go to like a coffee bar, in the evenings, coffee bars can serve you an aperitivo. You could go up to the counter and just ask for a prosecco, and they might give you like a little finger foods or even just peanuts and potato chips. It just depends. That could be as low as 4 euros if you're out of the historic center. So that's something you might want to try too. That's a local tradition. So that wraps up the information part of the webinar. Like I said, you're going to get an email from me because you registered, so I have your email address. Within the next 24 hours, I will send out an email that's going to have links to the resources that I told you about. It's going to have a Q&A recap of the Q&A that we're about to hold and a recording of this webinar. So if I was talking too fast, you joined late, whatever, you want to go back and review something, you'll get a link. But just so that you know, all of these webinars are posted on our YouTube channel. So if you went to YouTube and searched ItaliaPass, you would find the links right there. So now I'm going to stop sharing my screen. We're going to go to the Q&A. And so if you have a question, go to the icon where you see the question mark and it says Q&A, and you can just type in your question. It will pop up on our screen. We'll read it out and we'll answer you live. We have about 15 minutes to do that. But like I said, if we go over, if you have more questions, I'll answer them offline and I will include the answers in the recap. So you'll be covered. So we're getting some questions already. So the first one is Ostia worth visiting for a day trip? That's a good question. We've never had that one before. So Ostia is actually two different things, and I want to mention both of them because sometimes people get confused. You have Ostia Antica, which is kind of for your archaeology buffs. It has some ancient Roman ruins that you can visit. But then you also have Ostia Lido, which is like the beach. So it really depends whether it's worth visiting for a day trip, depends on if that's something that you want to do in your travels. It's very easy to get to from Rome. And there's a train that goes out there. It's about a half an hour. So yeah, so you'll have to decide if it's worth it for you based on what your plans are.
I can take the next one. Where do I go to change a date on my train ticket? So for all tickets that have been booked on italiarail.com, you can reach out to the support email that we have for ItaliaPass. Depending on the type of ticket that you have, we will, redirect the request to the best agent that can deal with it. Every ticket has, of course, a changing window. You'll see that when you're booking on italiarail.com. So as long as you're within that window, we can take care of that for you. I can take the next one too. How do I
Sure.
get from the airport to my hotel? So from the airport to the hotel, I would say depends on how many people you will have with you, how much luggage you will have. As I mentioned earlier, there's different ways of going into the city. I'm assuming you will be staying in Rome. So yeah, I would recommend either the train or a private transfer, depending on, again, I usually recommend private transfers for, if you're traveling with a lot of luggage or if there's perhaps, a big group that you're with. That's usually the best option, but it's up to you really. And it's the same, I would say it's the same for hotel to the train station. It would very much depend on where your hotel is located. As Shelley mentioned, there's a lot of public options within the city, buses, trams, and whatnot. Otherwise, we also offer transfers within the city from Termini, from the airport, anywhere within the city, even if you want to, book one from your hotel to the Coliseum, we can do that as well. The
You
same
can-
question. Okay.
Yeah, I was gonna say, do you want to take this one or you want me to, or
Yeah, no, for sure. I hadn't seen it yet.
it just
Um,
popped up?
Perfect. So yeah, how do I get from the train station in Civitavecchia to the cruise port? There's a shuttle actually. If you're already in the train station at Civitavecchia, there's a shuttle. Um, I'm not sure if it would count as a public bus. I can't remember exactly. But it should be right in front of the station. You could get the tickets directly. There should be a tabacchino, a tabaccheria, right out there. At least that was a few years ago. Now they may also have tap and go, but I'm not 100% sure. Um, yeah, but there's this shuttle bus that can take you directly from the station to the cruise port.
But given that he's saying he has luggage, there's also taxis. It's not
True.
far. It's like literally a 5-minute ride, I think. No, it's like I remember it being very close. But if you do have a lot of luggage and a shuttle bus might be difficult for mobility issues, getting up and down stairs, that kind of thing, there's certainly going to be a taxi queue right in front of the train station because that's Civitavecchia is just a cruise hub port. I mean, that's basically their main business there. So there's going to be taxis there all the time at the train station. So your best bet if you have mobility issues and lots of luggage is going to be either a taxi or a private transfer. All right, the email address for the support desk. For general,
That
for Italia Rail or yeah, Italia Rail would be info@italiarail.com. For Italia, if you're, I think the question from before was about rail tickets, or no, it wasn't. Was it? Let's see. Yes, she says to change my train ticket. So yeah, Italia Rail is info@italiarail.com. Is there anything else? That's correct, right, Sophia? That's where they should write to. Okay, there's also a phone number, but you're asking about email address, so you're fine there. Thomas asks, so a credit card with a chip can be used on the buses? Yeah, it absolutely can. Luckily, with the Jubilee, they updated a ton of our public transport here. It's more modern. It never used to be the case. But yeah, you just pull that chip card out, tap it. It's very modern and put it back in your wallet. And if an inspector comes on and asks to see your ticket, you just show your card. It doesn't happen that often with the inspectors, but it could. So, but yeah, so you're going to want to do that when you first get on the bus, the first bus that you get on. For all the other travel, you're not going to need to keep tapping your card, except for if you go in the metro, you'll have to tap it, but it's not going to charge you again. It's just going to register that that's your ticket. And now it's validating it for you to go into the into the metro. Oh, that's nice. Stephen said, thank you very much. Oh, you're welcome. We're really happy that you joined us. Happy to help. Come over to the community if you have other questions later on. We're happy to answer. We still have a few minutes if anybody else has questions. And if you don't have questions right now, like I said, feel free to come over to the community. It's very easy to remember. It's community.italiapass.com. You have to sign up to ask a question, but it's very easy to sign up. And I'm over there to answer any of your questions.
Same for support. If you need any help with travel planning, we'll be there.
Cool. All right. So I don't see any more questions. So we'll wrap it up. Like I said, you'll be getting an email. So look for that and within the next 24 hours. And most of all, have a wonderful trip to Rome. Buon viaggio.
Buon viaggio, everyone.